11 here. Today I will be portraying the character that dies at the bridge battle. He has a much more important role in the book. My brother says I look like a named character that nobody remembers the name of, but at least I get a name in the credits. But in reality, I'm out here to do a musket review for this Pedersoli second model Shortland, or more commonly known as a brown Bess. I bought this for about $1,600 in 2022. I got this from Dixie Gun Works. I'll be shooting 69 caliber balls that I got from Track of the Wolf, and I will be using 1F powder I got from Schutzen. So yeah, I've had this gun for a couple of years, and I'll kind of just talk my way through it. And this is actually my first time, actually my second time shooting ball through it. Usually I use it for the reenacting, so let's see how it goes. And I missed. So we're going to continue to work on accuracy. That's just been a problem of mine that I've been having. So, you see where that went? Did it go high or low? Didn't see it? Alright. This is the most highest quality production that you can get here. But it went off, so that was a step in the right direction. So these second model Shortland patterns, they would have seen a little bit more combat use after 1777. From what I've read, is that they actually didn't show up in the Revolutionary War until the Battle of Saratoga. Some of the units that went to Saratoga in 1777 had these. The Longland, which is basically the same thing, just a longer gun, had been prevalent in that area for a while. These are very, very handy guns. Pedersoli makes a very solid product. Like I said, I've been using it from the reenacting world for the last few years. And besides the barrel pins, I really have no problem with it. So let us aim a little high. That makes sense to me. Aiming high makes sense to me. And that's a hit. So I'm 1 for 1. Let's see how much we can keep that up. Interesting things about this. It's also called the pattern of, well, it'd be pattern of 1769. I've read that these guns actually have a large influence from the French 1766s, which were the lightweight upgraded version that replaced the French 1763s. The British wanted a shorter gun, hence the Shortland. Let's put that ball in there. As you can see, I am actually taking off a lot of that paper from my cartridge. I was just using regular printer paper, and that is not recommended because it does not quite. It actually is not as easy to work with down the barrel. I'm going to start using stuff you'd get from like a magazine. So let's take that third shot. I was aimed a little high. See if we can get our guy here real quick. Alright, I'm just going to aim dead center. Let's put another shot. So here's a close-up of the gun. You can already see it's starting to get some good powder breakup. This is the hammer stall. These hammer stalls are actually historically accurate to the era. What's not historically accurate is this flash guard. That is a reenactor safety thing. So if you're standing and you're about to shoot in a line of if you're about to have a bunch of reenactors in a line, they're about to deliver a volley, this flash guard stops that smoke and that from the pan and the explosion going off right into their face. I'm a very new to shooting black powder with ball. I have some pretty good experience with regular shooting, but it is a completely different animal. And from what I've been able to put together online, I'm not the only one that has a problem with twitching. So, I'm shooting a 69 caliber ball out of a 75 caliber barrel. Why would you do such a thing? Well, we got this loaded. Let's try it. We're gonna aim dead center. Oh. So the reason you shoot a ball that is a smaller diameter than the barrel. I guess I'm shooting up and to the right, is what my brother told me. The reason you shoot a smaller ball diameter than the barrel is that if your ball was actually to the barrel, it would have a much tighter fitting and would actually be more accurate. The problem you're going to run into is that these weapons were built for the combat of the era. And it was a lot, they wanted to make sure they took into account rate of fire. You can fire off, you know, if you're a well-trained musketeer, you should be able to fire off 3 to 4 rounds a minute. At least 3 rounds. And with that amount of rounds coming out, if one guy can shoot, say, 3 rounds a minute, after about 10 minutes, that's 30 rounds. Does that math check out? That math checks out. I never got past geometry in high school, actually. I took a lot of study halls. I took study halls because they let you take study halls. But anyways, back to, we'll say this is 1780. Though 3 rounds a minute, that is a lot of rounds going down range. And when you couple that with a company, which a company would have about 67 guys in 1775, so a company of men, and how about 40 of them that would form your firing section or your platoon, they would be engaging, so 2 lines, 20 in the, well, do 20 in the front, 20 in the back. That's a lot of rounds going. So if you do 40 times 3, that's 120 rounds a minute. So while individually the muskets are not going to be they're not as accurate as a rifle, they're definitely more accurate than I make them be. But anyways, let's take that shot.
Quick editing note, I noticed I didn't say the main reason for having a ball that is smaller than the diameter of the barrel, and that just has to do with the fouling buildup that happens when you fire black powder. With rifles, the ball is closer to the diameter of the barrel, but that means rifles are more quickly impacted by the fouling. But with a smoothbore musket of the era, if you have a 69 caliber ball firing out of a 75 caliber barrel, you have a little bit looser tolerances. So that means the impact of the fouling in the barrel will not be as big as it would be if you had a tighter tolerance. All right, now the way back to the video.
We might have to get ourselves a new flint. Hi? My brother's a mute. He's just sitting back there going up and down. It's what I actually needed. Having that explosion in the front of your face. I'll have to remember the name of the book. I'll source it down below. I think it was Destructive and Formidable. It's about the British infantry and their combat tactics from the English Civil War all the way to the American Revolution. And there's a lot of passages about anything past 50 yards, you're wasting powder. So this has kind of been a ongoing discussion that you see on YouTube. How accurate is a musket? Well, a musket actually can be accurate. If you have a properly sized ball, you have somebody that is trained in accuracy, it can actually hit out to 150, 200 yards. What are you aiming at though? Are you aiming at a point target or an area target? Even in today's modern Marine Corps infantry, you are taught 2 different targets, point target and area target. The M16 is good out to about 550 yards, if I remember correctly, on a point target being 20 inches across, man-sized silhouette. Area target out to about 800 yards. So how accurate is a second model Bess in the American Revolution? Well, you could make those long shots if you have someone that's experienced and you have the ball, but in general, we know from a lot of the accounts of the battles that the engagements are happening at very short range. Take another shot. All right. So aiming high and aiming mid does not work. That means I think I might have finally found my sweet spot. And if I can find my sweet spot, I'll actually I'll move farther back. You won't have to watch me just waste powder here at this entry level. Other things to take into account about accuracy in 18th century warfare. There is no standardized yearly marksmanship qualification system like you would have in the modern military. You don't go out to the range for a week. You don't have a coach that's sitting with you. It's not a controlled environment. You don't have a known distance range. Well, yes, in the French and Indian War, there are accounts of the British training accuracy, and they would also double load balls, which I found pretty interesting. That, in general, seems pretty specific to the French and Indian War. Other things you need to take into account when speaking of accuracy. How much powder are you going through? Powder, being short on powder is a logistical issue that you want to manage to the best of your ability. It's not just the individual soldier firing his flintlock. You have hundreds, if not thousands of men firing flintlocks. And if you're in a long engagement and you burn through powder because you're engaging at 200 yards as soon as you see them and you're doing that archery volley fire, I would actually, this goes out to somebody in the comment section, if you can provide to me a primary source in which the British begin an engagement at 150 or 200 from the American Revolution, I would love to see that. So let's take another shot. This time aim low. I mean, they're just probably better shots than me. I mean, that's not hard without saying. Another reason that you're going to have that shorter range engagements, knockout blows. The tactics of the era that the British would use is they would close in, fire a volley, and finish with the bayonet. Close in, and that's where their discipline and them having bayonets. Their enemies in the Continental Army, or the militia, especially early war, did not have a lot of bayonets. There's actually an account from the Battle of Guildford Courthouse that one of the militia units was given bayonets, literally, no, not Guildford Courthouse, Camden, that they broke out the bayonets and gave it to them, which means that those men were not trained with the bayonets, whereas the English, or the British, were trained. I think I might have figured it out. We'll see. So those two actually lined up pretty well. And I think it is that I am not using this back screw in the tang of the barrel as a rear side aperture. So yeah, the British tactically would fire a volley, close in with the bayonet. Battle Guildford Courthouse. First line. The British are moving forward. They are chasing General Greene. On the middle of the road, there are two American cannons and a line of North Carolina militia that are in their way. The North Carolina militia are on the other side of a field. They are deployed along a fence line. The British then deploy north and south of that road and move forward. Plenty of accounts say that they receive harassing fire from American riflemen on the flanks, but the North Carolinians do not engage till about 50 yards at the earliest. The British then promptly return a volley and move forward and engage the North Carolinian militia. So they move forward on that first line. They engage the North Carolinian militia. Put my hammer saw back on. And then they push them back. Well, they push the North Carolinians out of the way and move forward to the second line. And the cool thing about the Battle of Guildford Courthouse is it happens in sort of terrain like this, like lightly wooded, midly wooded. There's some rolling, there's some ravines, as you would call it. And it's not fought in an open field, minus that first line. So they're moving across open fields. This was March of 1781, so you don't have any crops in the way. It's early spring. So I guess that would be different because you wouldn't have as much ladder fuels on the lower limbs in that forest. But that terrain was specifically picked by Nathaniel Greene because that would break up the British assault. Imagine trying to move a battalion or a regiment, through terrain such as this. they'd get broken up by the terrain. So Nathaniel Greene used the right terrain. So they come up on the second line of militiamen. These militiamen are from Virginia. The Virginia militiamen at the Battle of Camden, here's some fun story, broke and ran and had left such a bad taste in the mouth of the generals and the overall view of those Virginia militiamen that there is a commander, a Virginia militia commander, that threatened to shoot his own men that ran because they had to bring back the pride in Virginia. So the British came forward and they ran into that second line of Virginia militia. And the Virginia militiamen, by all accounts, they do a good job of trying to rectify the problems that they had at the Battle of Camden. Camden, if you don't know, was a disastrous defeat for the American Southern Army. Gates, this is the one where Gates gets on a horse and runs away all the way back up to, I think it was Charlotte. Actually, I think it might have been Charlotte or Raleigh, but don't quote me on that part. So the second line, the British meet it, and they break through. After a very tough fight in the woods and in the ravines. Now, there are 3 lines. The third line is made up of the Continental Army Regulars, and it has some very experienced units with some very inexperienced units. One of the most experienced units was the 1st Maryland Regiment. And one of the least experienced unit was the 2nd Maryland Regiment. The 2nd Maryland Regiment had just received its officers within the last month. I think it might have been as short as weeks. You also had the Delaware Regiment, and they're very, very competent. They had a good fighting reputation. But that 1st Maryland Regiment, by far, was, you can argue, is one of the best regiments in the entire Continental Army. And here comes the Redcoats moving up, and that 1st Maryland Regiment engages. And they're actually, let's see if we remember this correctly. The 1st Maryland Regiment engages the British, and then the Guards are brought up, the 2nd Battalion of Guards. They ended up taking some cannons and taking the cannons from the Americans. And this is where one of my favorite, all-time favorite little factoids of the American Revolution happened. The 1st Maryland and the 2nd Battalion of British Guards engage in volley fire. Americans are probably shooting a lot of buck and ball, but the British are also shooting buck and ball. That volley fire is said to be so close that the smoke from the opposing units interlap. The 1st Maryland is able to fight that 2nd Battalion British Guards to a standstill. They are eventually broken up and pushed back. No, Cornwallis did not order cannons firing on his own men. That is just a myth. The kind of like the general history or general story, I guess, is that Cornwallis breaks up the fight by firing on his own men. That seems to be completely inaccurate. So let's fire another shot. So, but the Battle of Guildford Courthouse has a lot. So at the end of the day, the Americans are pushed off the field, but the British lose something, I think it's 25 to 30% of their attacking force, which you're like, oh, 25 to 30, that's not that bad. But I think people need to remember that when you win a battle and you lose 25%, that means you have, this is going to sound very stupid, 25% less men at the next fight. So if you keep on winning victory after victory after victory like that, you're going to run out of men. And actually, there's a quote from Parliament in which the British, looking at the Battle of Guildford Courthouse, which they do control the field at the end of the day, I remember it says, the quote is, another such victory like this and we will be undone. Battle of Guildford Courthouse, I've done the reenactment a few times. If you can make it to it, it's a great time. It's a very interesting battle. But let's get back to this Pedersoli. and we've knocked the steel off. So that's basically, here, let's see what it looks like. Like I said, these Pedersoli second model short brown besses are amazing guns. If you can get your hands on them, I would highly recommend them. You know, I've had plenty of commentary about the pins that's holding in this barrel to the stock, but overall, I've used it. I've taken it at plenty of events. I'm very happy I finally get to have the opportunity to shoot some ball. But yeah, if you can pick one up, Dixie Gunworks has them completed. I think they're going about $1,700. If you can get, maybe be able to find them for cheaper than that, Midway USA. But anyways, thank you for joining me today as I came out here, and I'm just kind of doing those beginning stages of learning how to shoot black powder. And the biggest thing for me is just, you got to have some control on that, because you need to be able to manage that recoil and that explosion in front of your face. But that's something I'll work with and learn with. So until next time, if you like this kind of comment, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, have a great day, take care.